the Nixon White House. When that litigation was satisfactorily resolved, I decided to use what I had learned to write the definitive examination of Nixon's handling of Watergate by transcribing all of his secretly recorded conversations on the subject. That material is the basis of The Nixon Defense, What He Knew and When He Knew It, published in 2014. Nothing I learned from that work changed my mind about what I had written in this book. To the contrary, I found solid corroboration, although I was able to fill in blanks I had not initially understood because the information had been unavailable. Blind Ambition was not written to explain Watergate. Rather, it is a memoir of my experiences at the Nixon White House that certainly adds to the explanation of that historical event. Because I am trained as an attorney, however, I had a unique problem when writing this book. How should I deal with my Watergate testimony? I knew that I could not repeat it verbatim in the book, for it was as flat and dull as testimony tends to be. It also ran over 61,000 words. At first, I tried to quote select passages and explain my feelings about the matters involved. I proceeded in this fashion because I was concerned about changing so much as a word in my testimony lest I be asked, "Which is true, Mr. Dean, Blind Ambition, or your testimony?" My literary agent at the time, David Obst, told me that my effort to tell the story in this fashion did not work. He had an idea. He would get Simon & Schuster to hire another of his writers, Taylor Branch, to help me pull it together, and in less than a month we had reworked the material into the narrative you have just read. If it had been suggested at the time, I would have added Taylor's name to the cover, for I certainly wrote this book with him. Author's note. This book is a portrait, not a black and white photograph, of 5 years of my life. It represents my best effort to paint what I saw and reproduce what I heard. I've included detail, texture, tone, to make this history more vivid, though I trust no prettier. I prepared for the writing of Blind Ambition the same way I prepared to testify before the Irvin Committee, before the special prosecutors, and in the cover-up trial. But in the book I've included dialogue and enclosed it in quotation marks, whereas in my testimony I deliberately refrained from dramatizing the events I was relating. While many White House conversations were taped, many were not. To reconstruct what occurred, I reviewed an enormous number of documents as well as my own testimony. Wherever possible, I spoke to others who were present with me during discussions, or I talked to people to whom I'd related conversations shortly after they took place, and I referred to notes I had kept. I have also, of course, relied on my memory in this account of my experiences in the White House, and while I do not claim to report the dialogues verbatim, I vouch for their essential accuracy. To borrow my lawyer's phrase, I'm ready to get on the box. Take a lie detector test. A final matter of importance. I have often read authors' acknowledgments, but I never before quite realized what they were saying. Now I do, and it is not merely a gesture when I offer thanks to all those who helped with this book. I sincerely thank Marcia Nassiter and David Obst for their early encouragement, Estelle Oppenheim and Marie Ralphs for typing and retyping many drafts, Patty Firestone and Hayes Gorey for critical readings and helpful suggestions, Richard Snyder, Sophie Sorkin, Vera Schneider, Harriet Rapinski, David Nettles, Frank Metz, Joanna Ekman, and the staff of Simon & Schuster for their enthusiastic and professional support, Taylor Branch for his talented assistance and patient tutoring, and Alice Mayhew, my editor, for guiding, more truly, forcefully, but thoughtfully driving, the book to completion. John D., Los Angeles, August 1976. Chapter 1. Reaching for the top, touching bottom. "Would you be interested in working at the White House?" Bud Krogh asked me casually. It was a warm afternoon in May 1970, and we were walking toward a park bench that was well shaded by the aged trees surrounding the ellipse. Bud had invited me to his White House office and, when I arrived, had suggested that we take a stroll so that we could talk. But I had no idea what he wanted to talk about. I was pleasantly surprised by the question.